good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Well, it's a beautiful Wednesday morning here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kayode Okikeru.
Grateful for clement weather. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And good morning, I'm Maope Ogun Yusuf.
Well, what do we know? I know this government has spoken about their plans to bring, 100 million people out of poverty over time. Now, what has become of that plan? Of course, your guess might be as good, if not better than mine, because you're keeping tabs on what's playing out. But we know we have government agencies who are set up to carry out certain things. We know they come up with monetary and fiscal policy, the impact on the country, the inflationary rate, they try to bring it all down. But guess what? There's this narrative about the plan to set up Poverty Eradication Commission. Yes, that is in the works. As a matter of fact, but like I said, listen to this. Hear for yourselves what is in the works.
The World Bank has made a distressing prediction that the number of poor Nigerians is projected to hit 95.1 million in 2022. This was detailed in its report titled 2022 Nigeria Poverty Assessment, which noted that the COVID-19 crisis is driving up Nigeria's poverty rate, pushing more than 5 million additional people into poverty by 2022. A federal lawmaker is sponsoring a legislation to establish a National Poverty Alleviation Management Commission to coordinate and regulate all poverty alleviation funds.
The reduction of poverty level.
He believes that if established, this commission will be instrumental in ensuring that funds earmarked to fight poverty will reach Nigerians in their need.
The bill will assist the court of law and other judicial bodies in ensuring all poverty alleviation funds from the government, local and international donations finally reach the targeted poor masses who desire to access the funds in order to alleviate their suffering.
If we have a commission that will coordinate the activities and through which all poverty programs will be handled, it means they have to get an aspect, a department for training, a department for monitoring. So before you give money to somebody for something, you must know why you are giving him the money, what the money must be used for.
The upper chamber is also amending the Hydroelectric Power Producing Areas Development Commission Hyperdeck Act to address its funding procedure. The commission is charged with the responsibility of managing the ecological menace from the operation of dams and other hydroelectric power activities in power-producing areas.
The rate of payment to the fund was reduced from 30% to 10%. The second is that 10% payment will be made by the federal government from the revenue it derived from the concessioning of the hydro plant as well as the royalty paid thereon. In other words, the burden of payment to the Hyperdeck Fund, which was previously on the GENCOs, under the 2013 Amendment Act, at a reduced rate of 10%.
The bill is sent to the Senate Committee on Power for further legislative work. Linda Kibi, Channels Television News.
You know, much as this bill, the Poverty Alleviation Commission, that is, forget about the other items that were also highlighted in that report, because that commission is where the focus will be. It's been on for a while. I think they started working on it in 2015. I remember Speaker Dogara mentioned that it was on the way. Now it's being brought back in the twilight of this, 8th, 9th Assembly? Okay. But there's so many questions about all of this because, given the way things have turned out here in this country, we know the questions that, for instance, it was 2 months ago that the reports was out there that the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management has spent some, 999 million naira for school feeding program for pupils. And do you remember during COVID, the figures that they said they were spending on pupils while everyone was at home? So such questions in terms of how ministries function here. And then you come up with another one. So, look, much as perhaps we need to go back and listen and hear them out in terms of how exactly is this going to function differently from several other ministries with all the bureaucratic bottlenecks that you never get things done with the ministries, the ICPCs and the EFCCs battling civil servants concerning how monies are frittered away and how the country says, look, we're pressed for cash, we'll have to have another ministry to eradicate poverty. So whatever happens to the states and the federal government's monetary and fiscal policy programs that they're supposed to ensure that things happen. And then this ministry, isn't it going to be a government agency? I thought they'd always tell us the private sector should be driving a lot of these things while we just create the enabling environment. So how is this going to fit into all of this narrative? I'm not sure yet.
And I think it's important to note that this has been in the works, as you said, for quite some time. And some would tell you that government itself is a poverty eradication or poverty alleviation mechanism. I mean, government is essentially there for the welfare, the security of people. That's the basic purpose of governance. So governance itself is like a poverty eradication or alleviation commission as a whole, if you get what I mean. So, and I think that points to the fact that government largely has failed in that responsibility. Some would ask, are we now trying to institutionalize poverty? That has been said time and again. How, 95 million people are projected to be in poverty. Some might even tell you, it is if we're there already, or we're even more than that, coming off COVID-19 and the rest. But my challenge is two of them. Okay, I mean, this is not the first time we'll hear about new commissions, proposals, and all of that. I mean, it will shock you the kind of proposals we're getting at the National Assembly in terms of commissions and government agencies. But so this is going to be at the national level. What happens to states and subnationals? Because that's where poverty really resides, okay? I mean, I don't want us to have that mentality of always looking to Abuja, because if anything, poverty really is at the grassroots. That's one. Two is really what people need to eradicate poverty or to move out of poverty is not really far-fetched. Infrastructure, good roads, electricity supply, reduction in the cost of production so people can at least focus on employing more. Imagine as a business you have to spend more than half of your maybe daily funds on just trying to fuel your generating set. How many people would you even employ to pay salaries? How well can you pay minimum wage if you spend a large chunk of your budget on power? So those simple things, providing access to health care, ensuring that people have water supply. I mean, those things, once you put them out there, people can easily find their way out of poverty. So I think rather than trying to establish this commission, which, I mean, I should commend, I don't really have all the details yet, but I think we should first focus on fixing those basics. Because once you can do that, as I said, government is actually a poverty eradication mechanism, then we can now start saying, yes, we're tackling poverty. But with a commission or an agency, I don't know, really.
Well, what will I add at this time? Kayode, as Chamberlain said, it places a poverty alleviation commission places a question mark on government's social investment program. By the way, what was the last thing we heard about the social investment program? There was the trader money, the market money, the conditional cash transfer. With inflation at 18% right now, I'm sure it has made a nonsense of whatever it is that, the beneficiaries of the social investment program were collecting. I imagine there are caterers who are enlisted in the homegrown school feeding program. What's the price of foodstuff in the market currently? How are they able to make profit under the circumstances? It's a tough...
That figure is even questionable.
Yeah.
999 million daily on 10 million people.
On 10 million people.
Questionable.
So I imagine some investigation, has to go on to find out how well the social investment program is performing at the moment. And then, Kayode, you made a very critical point about the minimum wage. The last check, it was 30,000 naira. What can you do with 30,000 naira right now? When SMEs have to, produce everything. They have to source for power, they have to source for water supply, just to get their businesses going. So where's the profit? So it's really not far-fetched how we can deal with poverty and get out of being the poverty capital of the world. Malkwe.
I'm a little confused as to what to make of this story, but I know I have heard before that when I think the remedy for poor government is more government, something to that effect. So maybe this is no surprise that, when we're talking about how it is that, there is poverty in the land, the solution will be to find an agency that will help, eradicate poverty. But we're not asking how it is that the monies which we earmark for a lot of the things in society, how come that money is not exactly trickling down? Why does it seem that money remains, is hanging up there and, remains in the hands of a few people? Just a few days ago, on a sister program, we hosted the Minister of Works and Housing, and he talked about the economy of infrastructure and how it works, and how when, contractors move to site, people who are building roads or building whatever infrastructure they're building, just how much it costs and what economy revolves around that, and how that by itself is a distribution of government resources. So we need to ask questions as to how many more of those kinds, because in almost every government agency, there is a contract process. There is a contracting system which is supposed to generate its own kind of economy. What effect is that sort of economy having? Do we really need a poverty poverty eradication ministry or agency for us to be able to achieve what it is that we need to achieve? Wasn't that what the Ministry for Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management and Social Development, it also has social development in its acronym, wasn't that what it was set up for? Because from what we know, it took over the functions of the I'm trying to remember the name of the initiative which the Vice President was heading for a very long time. But that was what the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Social Management, Disaster Management and Social Development took over. So what exactly, would that not be duplicating functions? I don't know. But maybe rightfully, for those who know, who say that the solution to maybe poor government or I don't know, big government is more government. Maybe they know what it is that they're saying. Maybe there's something that they're saying that we're not saying. But I know that right now, if you were to ask a lot of people, what do they think the National Assembly should be facing? They should be asking critical questions as to where our revenue is currently at, taking on the seriousness, taking on with every seriousness, the reports of the DMO that it looks like our revenue is far outshooting our debt servicing. So we need to ask critical questions in that area. People are very worried about where the economy is going and what can be done to ensure that we're taken out of the doldrums. Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I guess we'll hope to see what happens, because there's so many issues on this one. Don't forget, non-debt recurrent expenditure taking 50% of our budget. Then you see, look, there's just so much on this, but I guess maybe when it comes up much later, we'll table it properly and try to see their arguments concerning what currently exists and how appropriate or otherwise it is. But in the meantime, we'll just go right ahead and take you through some of the dailies here today. Yeah, let's start off with Nigerian Tribune today. DSS submitted 44 reports before Kuje prison attack. Reps Deputy Speaker. That's almost like you drop the mic kind of narrative right there. 44 reports. You should go ahead and read it, because I mean, some of the questions will be, okay, so what happened to all 44? Why did they have to wait till 44? So, okay. That's from the Reps Deputy Speaker. What became of that, I guess we'll see. Then you see on the front page here, Labour stages pro-ASU protest in states. Honor your agreement with ASU, Otom tells FG. ASU strike dangerous, poses threat to nation building. Ganduje. Falana joins protest, says Buhari insensitive to Nigeria's plights. ASU rejects plan to hike tuition fees in public universities. And it just appears as though it never ends. And don't forget, this strike will continue today. I beg your pardon, the protest. The protest will be on today in Abuja. And you see also, Otom to FG, what did you do with $1 billion security funds 36 states put together? That's Tribune this morning.
There are like 44 question marks hanging over that question, really. But take a look at the Guardian newspaper this morning. It leads with the pictures from the NLC ASU protests yesterday across states. And just on top of the pictures, you see terrorism. Senate mom, Abuja residents on high alert over planned attacks. So this is where we are right now. This is reality we're faced with. There have been previous attacks, not just the one in Kuje, the one on the Guards Brigade, and some others. Now, looks like there are plans for a full-blown attack. And you see different riders. DSS submitted 44 security reports before Kuje prison attack on presidential guard troops. Army Lieutenant 5 soldiers missing in action. So I know there's been some statement regarding that. We'll take a look at that much later on the program. But just at the bottom, expect another NSAS uprising if ASU strike lingers. NLC, Falana, tell FG. You know, some might see this as a threat, but I think it's just the reality, really. I mean, at this rate, if things, 5 months strike, goodness me. Page 6 of The Guardian has more details. I'll just take one more for you this morning. Terrorists kill 3, abduct principal, others in Katsina State. That's The Guardian newspaper for you.
And from the Guardian newspapers, let's quickly take a look at Vanguard newspapers this morning. And it has quite a number of stories that will interest you. Well, we'll begin with the big story from yesterday. Protests, government toying with an uprising like #EndSARS. That's attributed to the NLC. Of course, you know, the nationwide protest in solidarity with the Academic Staff Union of Universities and other affiliate unions, if you use the words of the NLC president on our program yesterday, SANU and NASU. That's it. And you see on the front page of The Guardian, beneath the big story, the picture of the protests in Ikeja, Lagos, capital of Lagos, yesterday. Those are the Congress members. A good aerial view there, if you ask me. And from there, let's look at above the nameplate of the Vanguard newspapers, 2 interesting stories. Of course, one from The Guardian, as mentioned earlier by Kayode. Bandits, terrorists planning attacks on Lagos, FCT, Katsina, 3 other states. That's attributed to the NSCDC. And there's another one, Rex not recognized as members of INEC. That's attributed to the National Commissioner on Voter Education, Mr. Festus Okoye, of course. That's causing a lot of stir, actually. Yeah, a lot of stir. Of course, we'll have him yet again on the program, to shed more light on that. The last has certainly not been heard of that position on Rex. All right, so from there, let's take a look at perhaps 2 more stories before we exit the Vanguard newspapers. NBA Olanikwekun face-off, body of benches meets silent on Akpata's petition. I guess that's a continuation of the story of professional misconduct of a member of the Olanikwekun chambers. Yeah, that story continues. And lastly, DSS shared intelligence reports before Kuje prison attack. That's according to the Deputy Speaker. Of course, that emanated from plenary yesterday at the National Assembly. And this is my opportunity to redeem my image and not to leave you on a sad note with all those depressing stories. Let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. Mr. is saying, you went to the bank, withdrew 500,000 naira from my account, took 200,000 naira. I promised you from it, prepared breakfast, and you're already on your way to the boutique. All this took only 9 minutes. How? And Mrs. replies, what you just experienced is 5G. Expect 6G soon. Money is speed. Well, Mrs. is
ahead of the
showing
government.
Some example.
We haven't even seen 5 yet, all properly done. No, he's talking about 6. Nice.
Nice one there from Mrs.
Absolutely.
Malpe.
Well, money does answer it, all things. Look at this one. Daily Trust is next year, 2023. North gets not lags behind as voter registration ends in 4 days. That's the lead story there. Delta Rivers register more people than Sokoto, Niger, Katsina, Lagos, Kano, Delta top chart, Imo, Yobe, Ekiti lowest. Insecurity, disenchantment responsible. That's according to Dawn and activists. They have an infographic there for you, which you might want to pick up a copy of Daily Trust newspapers and see what the infographic is saying there. But it's about completed registration. Don't forget that the program is coming to an end at the end of this month. So you also have a number of other stories here. ASU, federal government knocked at NLC stages, solidarity protests in states. No immediate solutions to aviation crisis, that's according to Minister and Airlines. Bandits kill 6 in Taraba, Katsina, abduct 36 in Kaduna, that's also there. And I'm not trying to frighten you, but have this one at the bottom. Terrorists plotting to attack Lagos, Federal Capital Territory, others. That's attributed to the NSCDC. Schools, worship centers, national assets targeted. And this particular one raises so many questions. DSS presented 44 security reports before Kuje prison attack. That's according to the deputy speaker. I think that particular statement needs to be interrogated. Who got this security report? Who was supposed to act on them? How come nothing was done about them? Or if something was done, what was done? How come they still, managed the attack? What security reports are they currently getting? Are they taking any action on it? This is some of the questions, that we would like to ask, or at least at the very top of my own mind as I'm reading this particular headline, or when I heard the deputy speaker yesterday talk about how 44 security reports were received before the Kuje attack. Well, so many things to deduce from the headlines, but that's what Daily Trust has on its front page this morning.
Look at New Telegraph. All right, Labour to FG. Resolve ASU strike now or risk total shutdown. To hold Abuja mega solidarity protest today, well, he said it's not solidarity, that they are affiliates, but it's understandable what they're trying to say. That's Labour president. Threatens action akin to end SARS protest as more than 25 chapters embark on warning strike, urges members to get PVCs to vote out government. Ganduje, Otom, Makinde, others urge FG to end varsity unions crisis as Falana urges Buhari to quit. Ambush attack on Guards Brigade. Military sources suspect sabotage. Confirms death of 3 soldiers. Allegedly recovers bodies of 2 officers, 6 soldiers. And then you see, call to bar ceremony will be low-key. Perhaps understandable, isn't it? Again, terrorists invade Kaduna community, break into homes, kidnap 36 residents. Whoa. And growing insecurity. Senate passes bill to establish commission against arms proliferation. Well, we'll put all that in the mix as we look at security in just a moment. Well, this ends a look at some of the dailies here today, but just give us a moment. We will be back.
Abuja, Nigeria's capital city, regarded as a safe haven from various acts of criminality, including armed robbery, kidnapping and terrorism, appears to be losing this status at an unprecedented rate. Although pockets of criminal activities resulting in arrests by the police have been reported in recent times, the July 5th terrorist attack on the Kuje Correctional Facility in the nation's capital sends new shockwaves down the spine of many Abuja residents. While many residents are yet to recover from the Kuje jailbreak experience, the Presidential Guards Brigade came under attack on the Buari-Dutse Road, just on the outskirts of the capital city, a situation that has brought the Federal Capital Territory's security architecture under the spotlight.
With what we have seen, with all of the happenings that are going on, nobody has been fired, to the effect of negligence. They take their time to take decisions. Intelligence will be sent across to other agencies. It's hardly implemented, and nobody is punished for it. So it shows that the president, in quote, of the Federal Republic of Nigeria hasn't really been responsive as expected of a commander-in-chief of the armed forces.
Ordinarily, because it's Abuja, the guard of the brigade guard should have been taking that responsibility, because it's Abuja, that is where the president stays. So every aspect of security comes under them, irrespective of whether it's the duty of the police or the DSS. At the end of the day, they are the ones. So in this instance, they should have taken responsibility. But again, because there are other organizations that are also serving the same function, nobody was held accountable. And I think that's something that needs to change.
24 hours before the attack on the Guards Brigade, the federal government was forced to close the Federal Government College, Kwali, located on the outskirts of Abuja city. Analysts say these are critical moments that require firm government decisions that will change the narrative for the better.
For the reason why we're seeing what we're seeing is because of the absence of accountability. Kaduna happened, nobody has been held accountable till date. Because there is no accountability, people that are serving within that sector don't fear that there will be consequences for their inability to carry out functions. So I think these are the reasons. The intelligence is there, frankly, but again, the failure to use that intelligence.
The terrorists can never win. We will always win. But we will win when we come together. We will win when we have trust and confidence in security agencies. We will win when the response is strong and it will send clear message. But I expect now that there should be storming of suspected places.
Security is a major concern for residents across the country. It is a challenge that many want the government to face and address squarely once and for all.
Welcome back. Reverend Ladi Thompson joins us. He security research, he consults. Good morning, and thank you for joining us again on the program today.
Morning. Pleasure always is mine.
Well, there's just so much going on at the moment. You've spoken severally about some of these things, even when people thought, there was no cause for alarm. But today, we see different types of attack. They enter homes in Kaduna, for instance, to kidnap people, as widely reported severally even this morning. And then the Minister of Interior the other day told pressmen that concerning the Kuje Correctional Facility attack, there was a problem with the will to respond on the part of the security agencies there, even though he says those responsible will eventually face the music. And today, yesterday, we've seen attack on the Presidential Guards Brigade. And then they tell us there were several reports by the DSS before the Kuje attack. So all of this in the mix. Now, Abuja seems to be the epicenter of certain things in the last couple of days. From your perspective, what do we have on our hands here?
Well, you should recall, through the years, I have maintained a very steady diagnosis of what we are facing in Nigeria. And if anybody pretends to be surprised about what is going on right now, we need to question the sincerity of the person. We are dealing with something that is extremely intelligent. It has a global reach. It is a hydra. It collapses nations from within. Now, when 7/7 happened in Britain, I remember their Prime Minister then, Tony Blair, mentioned that it looks like it's madness and looks like it's random. But he said there's a method to the madness. So I believe that the greatest challenge we have right now is that as a nation, we are not ready to face up to the reality of what we are up against. The problem that we are facing can be defeated, it can be handled, it can be curtailed. However, the point is this: when we have 4 basic challenges right now in all leadership sectors of Nigeria, and the 4 basic challenges that we have is what is making this thing continue to grow. In fact, let me first mention that the advantage we have, why they have not overrun us as a nation yet, is certain advantages that we have. Number one, our land mass is about roughly 930 square kilometers. And within that, we have about 300 plus ethnic groupings. We speak about 520 plus languages. So when you have a supremacist move that wants to subdue a territory like Nigeria, the war of narratives is important because we are 200 million plus, and there's no amount of militants, terrorists that they have that can handle all of us, except they're able to win the war in our hearts and in our minds. So all you see that is just going on in Abuja and all those places that we talk about, the Kuje prisons, Brigade of Guards, and all that. In fact, I heard there was a threat on the lives of some people in authority. Now, there's only one of the threats that I take seriously. The other one for me is so spurious because they must think that we are not capable of critical thought. Now, I want us to agree that if we can do away with confusion in high places, if we can do away with compromise, we can do away with corruption, and then above all, cowardice. There's too much cowardice. Nigeria is the only place where I see people who are 80, 90 years old, 70 years old, who are so afraid of death that they would rather send out young people to go and die rather than face up to challenges and solve a problem. Now, what am I trying to get to you here is that leadership, everybody knows that everything rises and falls with leadership. So it's time for us to put cowardice away and let us, it's very unfair on the lives of the young soldiers who are going to the war fronts every day to protect our lives. Now, what am I talking about here is this. One thing that is evident, even before Jonathan Goodluck left, he let you understand that this, the modus operandi of this threat operates by using moles in high places. One of the simple things nobody wants to admit right now is that everything happening points to the fact that there are people in the corridors of power who are working in cahoots with this menace. Now, I'm going to say this categorically right now. I'm going to put one foot down and let the country know something. Don't think a lot of the things happening in Nigeria are not related to one another. Number one, the Labour Congress is talking about another NSAS, blah, 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 and things like that. The academic staff union, look, some elders need to come out to the country and explain to the country that somebody knows you, somebody has studied you, somebody is deliberately creating chaos, somebody is accentuating the poverty, somebody who has authority inside government. Now, you remember the last times when we began to interrogate the fact that there were people with terrorist ties serving in governance, and we're asking, how did they get there? Now, Nigeria is a very interesting place. Security did its job, as they have always done. There's nothing wrong with our people. But the challenge now is when you allow influences. Look, our president is going to be 80 years old in December. When you're turning 80, we need to begin to think critically because it looks as if they assume that we are not able to think at all in Nigeria. When the leader of a nation is turning 80, he knows that associated with that age, there are certain challenges that will always show up: physical, cognitive, emotional, and social issues. And for the African, religious. So what you need to do is we need to watch the people who are around the president. President Goodluck Jonathan, candidly, with great candor, did mention, that right in his cabinet there was evidence of infiltration. So what makes us think that right in the cabinets and in the corridors of power right now, the infiltration has not increased? Now, the point is this: as long as we lack the courage, as long as there's confusion, compromise, corruption, cowardice all over the whole place, this thing is going to continue to escalate. It's a war of narratives already in many parts of northern Nigeria that have been destabilized. Some new emirates are cropping up who are fighting for the allegiance of the hearts of people. Now, I always said to us that we need a superior architecture of thought in dealing with this threat. Why on earth till now are we quibbling over this kind of issues when it is obvious that we need to look inward right now? We need to look around the president. We need to have people who are courageous enough to isolate and locate any voices that could be influential. Look, when you reach the age 80, I took care of my father till he left at 90s, in his early 90s. I remember his 70s, I remember his 80s, and I know the changes that come. Look, at 80, you don't want new faces around you. You grow familiar with a particular set of people, and once those people can infiltrate those circles, the nation is in trouble. So what are we talking about here? We have seen evidence.
Yeah, pardon me. As an aside, you said two threats. One, you could take seriously. The other, they shouldn't think that we can't think. Would you mind shedding light on that?
Well, like I said, if anything happens to our president in Nigeria, we must take the people around him responsible. We need to put attention right now on the people surrounding Mr. President, the people who are influential. And if for any reason anything happens to the president of Nigeria, I want people to understand something. You are dealing with a very intelligent hydra. It is invested in your politics right now. It is something that mutates. It thinks things through, globally and locally. And the point is, there was a mention of the governor, a very popular governor, who everybody knows that his cloak is not very convincing. The governor who sent out a tweet in 2012 at 11:15 a.m., the governor who made a confession on the 3rd of November, year 2016, the same governor who on an NTA Live program, February 2019, spoke about bodyguards unguardedly. Now there's a claim that there's an attempt on his life by the terrorists. Please, people, who believes that? Like I told you, they know how to collapse a nation from within by confusing all of us. The only serious threat that we see in all this is the fact that the president's life has to be protected. Don't forget that these people are so intelligent that when they used to sponsor the Boko Haram, and the time came for Shekau, who became an embarrassment and was of no use to them anymore. When Shekau would not move, the Shekau that the government had been looking for how many years, 12, 14 years, and couldn't locate, how many days did it take ISWAP to eliminate Shekau? So what is wrong with us as a people if we cannot try to protect the future of our children?
Okay, could you, pardon me, again, could you tell us about this chaos? Because now, what lots of people see is how legitimate or how important it is for labor, who are also protesting to buttress ASU's points, how important it is for them to be heard out by the government, their demands exceeded. But you say certain people, these people thrive in chaos, and there's been several narratives that could it be that they consistently want to create chaos, build it up, probably up until the elections, and then who knows, and take advantage of that scenario. Could you shed light on that as well?
Thank you very much. I would like to even use this opportunity to plead with the NLC. There must be strategic thinkers amongst them. I want them to realize that their response, rather, let me put it this way, instead of responding, they are reacting. And everything that they are doing right now, somebody somewhere knows they will react like this. And they're not going to be the only sector. Now, for the ASU, I will just go flat out and beg them, because they are supposed to be representing critical thought. More than anybody, these are the two bodies that should come together right now and say, wait a minute, something is going on in this country. Somebody is devaluing human worth. Somebody is creating chaos and mayhem. And let me please use this opportunity to plead with a notable person like Femi Falana. Please, we should not respond ENSA style, because the same brutality that you saw, the same cold, calculated ruthlessness that crushed the will of the young children during the ENSAs will waste lives. And we are dealing with something that is extremely intelligent. It has watched Nigeria. If at all there should be anything right now, I think the elders, you see, this is where I miss people like the elder Ahmed Joda. Ahmed Joda was a massive asset to this country. These are the kind of people who by now will privately consult government, they will speak, they will build consensus with their elders across the country, and they would reach out to ASU and all these people and help them to understand what is going on in the country. Now, the political class is distracted, not understanding that ISWAP is already invested in the political class as well. And all you have to do is to join the dots and realize that Nigeria is being taken for a ride. Now, for people who are above 50 or above 60, at least you've lived a few decades. How about the younger generation? Shouldn't we at least, out of compassion, build a wall against all this confusion, all this compromise, all this corruption, and all this cowardice, and manifest what we are known for as Nigerians? Nigerians are known to be thinkers. Our people are good people. So who is disabling us from within like this? And do we forget that if we allow them to do this to Nigeria, West Africa is gone?
May I come in there? Pardon me, Mr. Thompson. May I come in there as we continue to talk about ISWAP? You have said in unequivocal terms that the threat on the president's life, and I imagine you were referring to the video released by the terrorists over the weekend, that the threat on the terrorist's life should not be taken for granted, and that those around him should be investigated. But if am I correct to say that the similar threat made on the life of the Kaduna governor should not be taken just as seriously? Is that what you're insinuating? And if that is it, why do
I'm not insinuating. I'm telling you point blank. Please, so let's talk about better things and let's talk about.
So why should a threat on the president's life be taken seriously and that of the Kaduna governor shouldn't be taken seriously?
Honestly, one of the things I love to do is to waste the time of our citizens talking about irrelevancies. The governor of Kaduna State, when he floated his Muslim ticket, assured everybody that there would be no troubles, despite the build-up that we had seen. His rhetoric, his body language, and what I said to Nigeria is that we need to do something. We need to mathematize reality. We need to look at the number of persons that have been killed, whose blood has been shed. The amount of insecurity in Kaduna State escalated greatly, again, because of the failure of his leadership. I don't like to talk much about him because he represented a great hope to many of us in southern Nigeria. We all remember him as a very brilliant person, a well-traveled person. So the way he has handled governance for us has come as a shock and a surprise. So I really don't think we need to entertain much about his. I mean, he's the one who will, he talks, so he will tell you how they listen in, they're on radio. Let me ask you a question. In which country of the world does anybody carry 100 million naira cash and take it out to some place? And the governor of central bank says they cannot track and trace those notes. In which other country do we have currency in billions? If not, there are people who are at, there are people in high places who are helping to recirculate them, bring the money back into circulation.
All right.
Even if you were being paid in dollars, even these things will be tracked down. So I don't understand what we're talking about. We just need to start thinking. We are known for thinking. We are Nigerians.
How much of the continuing threats to security and even attacks have a bearing on the 2023 general election?
Well, the only reason why they will begin to threaten our president is if they believe that the moles they have in high places and their handlers have maximized his use, and that if he's not going to be of much use to them any longer, I can tell you that these people are very ruthless. They will not think twice about that. Then let's talk about the elections. Don't forget that Nigeria has always had a fractured leadership selection program. Nigeria was engineered from the beginning in such a way that the best leadership for Nigeria never emerges. The challenge we have, again, here is that we don't understand programming in Africa generally, and Nigeria now in particular. So what is happening now is that, do you think ISWAP, who are so intelligent, who coordinate, who disable, who have been able to disable most parts of northern Nigeria like that, cheaply, you think they are so stupid that they are not even invested in the politics that's going on? I mean, look, everybody, let's put away cowardice, corruption, compromise, and confusion. Some of the people vying for presidency have signed their own death warrants by picking some candidates who have known ties with terrorism. So what are we talking about? Just as you are getting excited every day talking about voters card and all that, there are some people who are sitting down watching you, and they know that what is going to come in Nigeria in the future, the greatest issue for 2023 is going to be security. There's going to be an escalation of violence, and there's every possibility that a major surge from the northern parts of Nigeria is going to be happening before the 2023 presidential elections. As for the southern parts of Nigeria, especially Lagos State, all I can just tell everybody is wake up. Cowardice doesn't help anybody. Don't die 1,000 times before you die finally. Wake up, because I can assure you that even what you saw in Owo, when it will come to the time of a place like Lagos State, what you're going to be dealing with is going to be what they call a big bang. Don't forget that we have said to you that the instrument these people use is terror. And they have a clinical use of it. They're very intelligent. They're not stupid people, okay? But they know what they're doing. So if Nigeria does not, I mean, there's nothing wrong with our security architecture. There's nothing wrong with our policing. There's nothing wrong with our people. Nigerians are good people. But the challenge we're facing here right now is compromise, confusion, cowardice, and corruption in high places.
So those are the 4 C's, and you have reiterated that time and again in this conversation. You've also said that this, this whole chaos, whatever it is, there's a method to it. It's very intelligent, and I don't think you can fight intelligence too much with brute force or with the usual reaction. You also have to be intelligent as you approach this. And you have said, I hear the hope in the things you said, that we can actually combat this. You said we've had missed chances, as it were. So what are the kind of decisive actions you would expect? How would you expect us to, approach this? You mentioned a few people and how you expect them to relate with this or respond to this. What kind of thinking should we have? It will look like we've been responding the wrong way. So what should we do decisively?
Well, there's only one thing I think we can talk about publicly at this stage. In times past, there are lots of things we would say, but right now I think a lot of them are belated, and the things that are ahead have to be done, circumspectly. Now, we've mentioned that one of the advantages we have in this country is the sheer size of the country and the diversity and the sheer numbers that we have. Not only that, but through the years, there's been a lot of intermarriages. There's been a lot of genuine friendships cut across the nation. So since we know that there's a war of narratives going on that's trying to capture the hearts of Nigerians, first, it started mainly as a religious war. They tried to sell us and get us into a religious war. But somehow the Southwest didn't respond to that. So it wasn't going to work. So right now they are shifting tactics. They are pushing more for violence. They're doing a lot more sublime things. So one of the simple things that should be happening right now is that the elders of the nation, look, I've had conversations like I mentioned the name of the late Ahmed Doda, I can also mention the name of some other elders in this country, highly respected people. They need at this time to build consensus. They need to talk directly. No more cowardice, no more corruption, no more compromise, no confusion. They need to let us know. There are men that I know who are here pre-independence. They knew the hopes of the country when this nation started. Many of them are aware of what happened in the meeting in Kaduna in 1958, Professor Anderson and all that. Look, where we are at right now, it's obvious we are headed for disaster, except we face with courage this challenge. So if we have consensus builders, and let me say this quickly, please don't parade any fake elders again in Nigeria. Don't give me an elder who is making money out of mining in northern Nigeria, who is compromising where they are killing young soldiers, who has one foot, one leg in the camp of the terrorists and one leg in the camp of the federal government, and then parades themselves as elders in the country, talking about peace, and the people who walk with them know all these things. So what am I pointing out to us? Creditable elders, credit-worthy elders who need to get up and help to build consensus. Now, I spoke about people like Femi Falana and co, that they need to be briefed thoroughly to realize that they, more than anybody else, should be making sure that nobody is creating any chaos, or find creative ways of protest. And let the universities go to the drawing boards and do some thinking on behalf of the country and come up with solutions for this country. Then finally, the media has a big role to play. You see, what is saving Nigeria right now is that technology has taken media to another level in such a way that whatever is happening in Nigeria is all over the world. So the whole world is watching what is going on in Nigeria. Unfortunately, let me just say this one quickly to Channels TV in particular, since you have shown some degree of excellence, to which I hope you can add some courage when I talk about this. Now, the BBC, whose role in nation building in Nigeria has always been here a little, there a little, okay? They came up with some documentaries recently that are almost like image laundering and touting excuses for the violence and laying the card for foreign intervention later on. Now, the documentaries were so well packaged and very subtle that if you don't read in between the lines to see where they are going and the lines of arguments they are laying, you will not even detect what they are doing. Now, we need Nigerian media houses that have the intelligence and have the wherewithal and the means to produce documentaries like that for us. But this time around, please, they have to be done from the perspective of the future of Nigeria. Nigeria has been good to some of us, many of us, and I think we need to leave a legacy for the younger generations. That is something that is worth, promoting their lives.
Are you exonerating the president in all of this?
I said something about the profile of an 80-year-old man. I said to you that there's a systemic problem. And there's a proverb in Yoruba language that you never leave you can't ignore leprosy and then come and be fixating on something that's not a lesser issue. What I'm trying to point out to you right now is that we have to be pragmatists. This is where we are. How do we move forward from here? He is a duly elected president. The hopes of many were pinned on him. I mean, talking about exonerating the president, when he was sick, the whole country, we prayed our hearts out for God to have mercy, Christians and Muslims. God had mercy on us. He became well enough, and he has rewarded us. Now, what he has rewarded us with, we'll tackle in his legacy. But for the moment right now, what we are saying is very simple. You cannot compare a 54-year-old Muhammad Buhari or a 60-year-old Muhammad Buhari to a 79, 80-year-old person. More so when we realize that he has some health challenges. So right now, the pragmatic thing to do is to protect him as a Nigerian treasure. We need to protect the legacy of the presidency. You see, we need to get away from fighting little battles and go to the bigger issues. And when we have finished settling the bigger issues, we can now come back in memoirs and things like that to settle the other issues that may arise. So it's not a matter of exonerating or not exonerating the president. It's a matter of pragmatism. I've said to you many times that tragic optimism should be the policy with which Nigerians are working right now.
Let me go back a little to the issue which you raised about paying terrorists, or will I say compensating terrorists, people who have now started terrorizing the country, which the current governor of Kaduna State admitted to doing in his very first term. I'm trying to remember the context for that question. I still remember that it was on Sunrise Daily that he said he granted that interview, and he said, I think we had asked him the question in relation to peace, which it would seem that Kaduna was enjoying at that time. And he had said that, oh, there was some problems before he came, and that, you know, he was able to get to the root of it, and that this was what he was able to do. This was what he found as a result of that. And he admitted to paying compensation, you know, going out of the country to find the people who were aggrieved and who were perpetrating evil in Kaduna State. And that was when he paid that money so that they would not attack. But this same governor, when it was seen that governors of the Northwest began to face the problem in general, and some of them were proposing paying settlement to these bandits, he was the one who said no. No more, he wasn't going to go down that route anymore. It would seem that he had realized that that hadn't worked, because the people in Kaduna were still suffering. At that point, the crisis in Kaduna had escalated somewhat, especially in southern Kaduna. Will it be fair to still say that, based on his own admission on television, that, you know, he knew something that, you know, knew something untoward was coming to the entire country, and he fueled it based on something that he said was a solution at the time, given his own experience? Because it would seem that all the other governors too have finally come to that conclusion. We've seen a few other governors who were paying compensation to bandits and terrorists who now realize that, you know, it wasn't really the way to go. Will it be fair to judge him based on what happened initially, and when he even came back to say that, you know, he realized that that was not going to work with these people?
I have no doubts that the governor of Kaduna State is a very erudite person, highly cultured, a man of impeccable tastes. But I'm not talking about his personal appeal here right now. Are we saying that the person who posted a tweet in the year 2012, who said, "We write this for all to read"? And what did he write in that tweet? He says, anyone, soldier or not, that kills Fulani, takes a loan, repayable one day, no matter how long. 2012. Now, like you said, has been able to rethink, and you said he's a rethinker. I mean, your words, not mine. And then by November 2016, he crossed national borders as a governor to Niger, Cameroon, Chad, Mali, Senegal, to locate, I don't know whether we should describe them as Keith and King. Now, every nation of the world defines terrorism in a way to protect its sovereignty. Now, if the body language of anybody in authority shows a divided loyalty between the unity of our nation and an external aggressor, we have serious issues that need to be investigated thoroughly. Then again, I don't even want to be the one to hold brief like this. I think if we forget lick spittles and lackeys and do a little brief interview around Kaduna. Kaduna used to be known as small London. My first visit to Kaduna was in 1979. It was a peaceful, lovely place. It was the future of Nigeria. In fact, as goes Kaduna, so goes the nation till today. Go to Kaduna today. Kaduna is divided into two along lines of religion. Why's all this cowardice that's going on in the country? Why can't we admit that we need to solve these problems? Now, when he was going to become a governor, we believed that all the divisions will be mended, that the bloodshed will be reduced. But like I said, let us mathematize these things. Let's put it in mathematical forms. There has just been an increase in insecurity under his mantle. And if you need to find out more, I would advise you to go to Kaduna State, not just Southern Kaduna alone, to get the details.
Well, as we wind down now, because, I mean, in days ahead, we're going to focus a lot more on some of these issues and call a spade, you know, no matter whose ox is God as we move forward. But just one more thing. Now we're approaching elections. We'll still have some months, quite all right. What would you consider as the key thing that the electorate should consider, above all else, as they take their decision towards 2023, across board?
Well, I'm going to say something. The electorate right now has been told to pin its hopes on the voter's card. And any seasoned politician in Nigeria knows that the outcome of elections in Nigeria is not really based on voters' cards and the counting of votes per se. We have systemic flaws. So what I'm going to say is this. Let those who are very optimistic, build up on the voter's card and all that. But for people who know what is going on and can see what is happening to the country, we need to admit that we have a systemic problem. And unfortunately, none of the three contenders, as it were, the two major contenders and the outlier, none of them so far have said anything that remotely can handle the level of security problem that we have. So let the younger generations have their enthusiasm and all that. But for people who are a lot more experienced, a lot more savvy, it's better for us to face what the real problem is. We have a systemic problem. The systemic problem is that every crack of division we've had that no leader dealt with properly. Gawan did some help in his days with the NYSC in terms of integration. But we left a lot of these problems, and right now there's an external mind, a brilliant mind, taking us apart. So my counsel is very simple at a time like this. Let those who have sound understanding, let us face the real issues. We have a systemic problem. And no matter who is brought in as president of Nigeria, these problems will continue. ISWAP is not going anywhere, except we are able to fix the systemic problems and present a united front. Again, let me repeat in closing, cowardice, confusion, corruption, and compromise. No nation can be built successfully when we have this kind of challenge.
Food for thought. We do thank you very much indeed, Reverend Ladi Thompson, strategic security researcher and consultant. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, so that is it today. And don't forget, our doors are open. We welcome all shades of opinion. And as a matter of fact, we can have a round table and talk about all of these matters and address them headlong. Well, that said, we're back in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. Well, yes, we will have that conversation soon. But before then, let's flip to Abuja. We're going to the field. Now, remember, today, the Nigerian Labour Congress are converging on Abuja. We'll find out what is going on at the moment. We'll go to our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, who is on ground there to give us an update. Hello, Kayla. What is going on at the moment where you are?
Hello, Chamberlain, and good morning, everyone. We are at the Unity Fountain in Abuja. We came here when there was no one, but right now there's a lot of people from the Nigerian Labour Congress all getting ready for this protest that is in solidarity with the Academic Staff Union of Universities. The past president of ASU is here. The present president of ASU is here as well. We're waiting for the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Mr. Yuba, about to get here. He's going to address this crowd behind me, and then they're going to have a feel of what today's protest is going to look like. They're going to be marching, we're told, to the National Assembly. If the gates are open, they're going to go in. If the gates are not open, they will be at the gate. But they do have a message that they need to deliver to the leadership of this country. And according to the people that we've spoken to today, that message has to do with the ASU strike. And they're saying, look, we cannot continue like this. Kids cannot be at home for 5 months. And that is the message that they want to send today. But the protest is going to start here. There's a lot of police presence around us. We're told that the police are here to actually protect the protesters, right? So it's not a situation where Labour is at variance with the police. But they're going to be guarding the protesters and then leading them as they go all the way to the National Assembly to deliver this message to the leadership of Nigeria in solidarity with the Academic Staff Union of the University. So we're basically waiting right now for the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Mr. Iba Waba, to address this crowd before the protest begins, Chamberlain.
Thank you very much indeed, Kela. So we will keep tabs with you and get updates as we proceed. So there you go. You know that you need to keep it locked here if you want to get some updates concerning the NLC ASU protest. Well, let's stay in Abuja, as a matter of fact. We've got our next guest lined up already. Markwe.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Indeed, anticipating the World Anti-Trafficking Day, we have with us in our studios this morning Dr. Fatima Waziri Aziz, who is the Director General of NAPTIP. Good morning and welcome to our studios in Abuja.
Thank you.
It's our first time hosting you here on Sunrise Daily, right?
Yes.
Since you assumed office as the Director General.
Yes.
Oh, well, I don't know. First, how would you say you found your work as the Director General at NAPTIP? How has it been?
Mokwe, it's a lot of work. It's been very intense, but we just have to do what we need to do. Amplify our responses, amplify our prosecutions and awareness creation. But it's a lot of work. If we say 4 or 5 years ago, and anyone asks, where's the epicenter for human trafficking in Nigeria? We could easily have said it's Edo or Delta State. But right now, it's a national crisis. No state is immune from human trafficking, even though trends and proportionality may differ, but we have it currently cut across all states.
Well, interestingly, awareness has grown. Your predecessor in office also did a great job, at least in bringing to the fore the job that NAPTIP was doing. And a lot of people, grew their awareness about human trafficking. But has it really changed anything in terms of how this challenge of, human trafficking, the dimensions it is currently assuming, has it really changed anything? First, I want you to speak to the Edo dimension, the fact that people knew that Edo was at the heart of human trafficking before now. Would we say that we've seen a reduction there? Have there been any changes made as a result of the awareness?
Yes, when we talk about Edo State, Edo has actually, they've been able to put their house in order. So they have a lot of interventions targeted at the youths. So when we talk about forced migration, we are looking at trafficking in persons, smuggling of migrants, and irregular migration. So if you look at the Edo situation, they have more of smuggling of migrants and irregular migration. Of course, they also have components of human trafficking. But, we look at the key drivers of human trafficking. What are those root causes of human trafficking? Number 1 is poverty. Number 2 is lack of job opportunities, educational opportunities. Then we look close to the family unit. We also have greed. We also have ignorance. So people don't really understand the dimensions of human trafficking. They don't understand the risk of human trafficking. But when you have some socio-economic and socio-political checks in place, it helps to reduce that. And this is something that Edo has done. They've invested a lot in youth empowerment. They've invested a lot in entrepreneurship. They have this very fantastic program called Edo Jobs, which is targeted at the youth. So yeah, so Edo, they are trying. Then of course, we have the prosecution part. I think they have designated courts that handle trafficking in persons cases in Edo.
Okay, so it's interesting to note that there is some progress being made, but now you say that the problem is a national one. And I know that, also before now, there has been talk that intra-human trafficking within Nigeria was getting to proportions that were worrisome. Which one would you say is a bigger worry for you? The one happening from Nigeria to the outside world, or the one happening within the Nigerian space?
When we look at the data we have in NAPTIP, so data from 2019 to 2022, currently 61% of trafficking that goes on in Nigeria happens internally. So trafficking that happens within the states and within communities. Then we also have trafficking that happens across state lines. Then 39% happens across our borders. I would say the one that happens internally actually keeps me up at night, because we have a lot of sexual exploitation, state-to-state sexual exploitation. We have a lot of child labor. We have a lot of forced labor. We have a humongous problem in terms of buying and selling of children. So there's this trend where children are stolen from the north and sold to different parts of Nigeria. So it's a huge problem. We can't focus on the internal problem without the external problem. So it's something we need to tackle, you know, side by side.
I just try to internalize some of the challenges, you know, which are, for the avoidance of doubt, for people who are watching this program, can you tell us precisely, when you say internal trafficking, what precisely do you mean? I mean, how is a person trafficked internally?
Okay, let me give you an instance. We recently handled a case in Enugu where a 15-year-old girl was trafficked from Ebonyi to Enugu State for sexual exploitation. So that is internal trafficking. Then you have where children are stolen from one part of the Nigeria and sold to another part of Nigeria. That in itself is trafficking.
I ask this because we know that in Nigeria we have a domestic help situation.
Yes.
Where, you know, we know that there are people who are supposed that, let's say patrons, or I don't know what name to call them now. They bring people from certain parts of the country to cities, Lagos, Abuja, and different parts of the country. And, you know, from there, people get their domestic help from these people. Does that also qualify as trafficking?
Yes, our act is very clear on the crime of domestic servitude. So if you look at, I think it's contained in Section 23 of the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act of 2015. It clearly says anyone who employs, recruits, transfers, harbors a child under 12 years has committed a crime. So in the definition itself, you can see it's an entire value chain. So it doesn't matter if you are the end user, if you participated in any form, if you recruited that child, if you transferred that child, if you harbored that child.
So the person has to be below the age of 12.
That is what it's stipulated in our act. But of course, you look at the Child's Right Act, it says a child is below 18 years. Then when you look at our labor laws, so it's a problem. We actually need to harmonize our laws. So NAPTIP Act says below 12 years. Child Rights Act says below 18 years, even though it gives an exception of a child below 15 years can do light work. But then what is light work? You know, so we actually need to harmonize our laws. But we'll have a crisis in terms of domestic servitude in Nigeria.
Well, I'm also looking at, you know, the theme for this year, and the theme is use and abuse of technology. I do not know whether it has a bearing on our own peculiar problem here in Nigeria. Is it something that we can identify with, the use of technology in the crimes that we currently face with human trafficking in Nigeria?
Oh yes, if nothing, COVID-19 has reinforced the importance of digital communications. So with the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw a shift from physical recruitment to virtual recruitment. So in NAPTIP, we saw a lot of fake online job advertorials. We saw an increase in fake scholarships around the world posted on social media handles. Then unsuspecting victims will now go, click on it, and the next thing you start interacting with a trafficker. So yes, it's something that resonates with us, and for me, I think it couldn't have come at a better time, considering the shift in in the antics of human trafficking. So it's something we see, you know, incremental cases of the use of technology.
Let me flip this conversation to Lagos now. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, thank you, Maukwe. Dr. Fatima, a report from NAPTIP says that between 2018 and I believe 2021, 500 trafficked Nigerians were rescued from Mali. I wonder if, in that regard, the agency is turning its searchlight to similar situations in those Arabian countries where a lot of Nigerians are suffering domestic abuse from their employers and from those who traffic them to those countries who are demanding some form of payment. And tell us what interagency collaboration is like in dealing with this problem, particularly with diplomatic missions abroad, which also have, you know, their own challenges.
Yeah, thank you for your question. And yes, you're right. There's an increase in trafficking in these countries. We have a lot in Saudi Arabia. We have now in Dubai. I think in the past 2 weeks, we've actually treated, let me say, more than 20 reports from Dubai in terms of forced exploitation. So for us in NAPTIP, we do a lot of, so when we get these reports, we do the initial triage. We have a department called Intelligence and International Cooperation. So we do the initial triage. We identify, we'll establish communication with the victim wherever they are. Then we collaborate with the law enforcement agencies in that country to rescue them. But in terms of repatriation, we rely on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we rely on NSA, we rely on everyone that can help repatriate these victims back. And under the International Organization for IOM, they have a program called Assistant Voluntary Return and Reintegration Program, where they assist in returning victims of human trafficking back to Nigeria. So it's something that we at NAPTIP, we can't tackle by ourselves. So the approach that we use is a whole of government and whole of society approach in tackling this trans-border crime.
Also, a report from your zonal command in Uyo says that you received 1,035 cases, that's in 2021, and that the command convicted about 52 traffickers. This is a rather low number compared with the number of cases that you have received. How strong is your mechanism for prosecution? Is that a challenge in that regard? Does the agency need some sort of boosting in terms of personnel that will pursue prosecution?
Yeah, I agree with you, because when we consider the enormity of the different trends of human trafficking, you expect that probably NAPTIP should be, at the we should have cases, covering our faces. But to give you, to share some data from inception, so from 2003 till date, NAPTIP has secured a total of 525 convictions. And 28 convictions and counting just for the year 2022. So in terms of challenges in prosecuting these cases, of course, we have very low reportage, so people don't report the crime, and victims most times don't cooperate with us, and the reason why they don't cooperate with us is because these traffickers are known to them. So when we look at our data, we look at our statistics, people are trafficked by people they know. So you have sisters trafficking sisters, you have brothers trafficking brothers, you have uncles and aunts trafficking nieces and nephews. So when we rescue them, okay, come help us so that we can arrest the perpetrator. It's usually, oh, we don't remember, or we don't know. So these are challenges that we face. Then we also face challenges in procuring victims from remote areas. Because we all know, of course, when you are prosecuting trafficking cases, you need victims, you need witnesses, you need everyone to make the case stronger. So just to share a bit of the challenges we face in terms of prosecuting trafficking in persons cases. But largely, you have low reportage. Then you also have communities that do not cooperate with us. They tend to protect these traffickers against NAPTIP because they believe these traffickers are indeed doing something good.
I always imagine just how dangerous the kind of work you do is. And I just want to know, in terms of partnership, first, I mean, two questions I have, but first in terms of, getting the right protection for, your staff and people you work with, because it's a very tricky one. You've talked about how close, these people can be sometimes, family members. So imagine you trying to solve an issue between family members. You might be caught in the crossfire. They might rat your people out. So in terms of protection, ensuring that at least while you are trying to help out with trafficking, you are protected as well. Would you say you are covered in that area?
Well, we try. Like I said, most of the work we do, we collaborate with sister agencies. So we have a lot of police officers seconded to us. But to be honest, it's not enough. You've highlighted the fact that it's a dangerous job that we do. We constantly put our lives on the line. Just a few months ago, we had a case of a trafficker who was convicted. And this trafficker, for some reason, got hold of a phone in the prison and called the investigating officer, the lady that worked on the case, and literally threatened her to say, oh, NAPTIP, you have convicted me, I'm in prison, I will come for you. So these are things that we see every day in our line of work. We don't have the powers to arm ourselves, so our officers, our operatives don't carry guns. So we rely a lot on DSS, we rely a lot on the police, we also rely a lot on NSCDC. But in terms of our protection, we just do what we need to do and pray to God, we stay safe.
Right. And I see figures, interestingly, that trafficking occurs more inside the country than outside. I think about 61% in country, but I mean, doesn't rule out the, 39% that happens outside. And we've seen cases, several cases, in fact, one recently, where someone is taken outside the country for different reasons, maybe to help or to do some other things. And they get to that country and it's a different ballgame entirely, perhaps because the laws are different. And then we have a huge, mess on our hands when it comes to those cases. So is it a challenge with harmonizing the laws? Perhaps the laws in Nigeria are different from laws in those countries, such that what is permissible here is not in those countries? Or is this as a result of not following due process in those issues?
In terms of international law, we have the United Nations Convention on Transnational Organized Crime. And it was based on this convention so Nigeria domesticated this convention, and the UNTOC, as it's called, also has specific protocols that speak to specific transnational crimes. So in terms of human trafficking, we have the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. So most countries now enact legislations in accordance to UNTOC and its optional protocols. So yes, we talk about sovereignty. Our laws may be different from the laws of other countries, but human trafficking is human trafficking. The elements are the same. It's a crime against the person. So the elements are the same. But in terms of rescue and repatriation, of course, we have to work with the law enforcement agency in these countries.
The acts say regarding, who may be trafficked, especially for the domestic helps, as Mark said, and there's some sort of discrepancies. 12 years, labor law says 18 years, or the Child Rights Act rather says the child is someone below 18 and all of that. There's need for harmonization, but so we are clear. What are the elements, the basic elements of trafficking? Because for all you care, some people might be involved in it right now, and they don't know. It's something they probably have been doing time immemorial, and they thought, I mean, it's only right. I'm helping this person. So what are the basic elements to look out for in terms of trafficking?
Okay, so when we talk about the definition of trafficking, so trafficking is the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, receipt of a person, through the means of fraud, through the means of coercion, through the means of deception, for the sole purpose of exploitation. So when we talk about the sole purpose of exploitation, it could be for sexual exploitation, it could be for domestic servitude, it could be for forced labor, it could be for buying and selling of human beings, slavery, and all slavery-like activities. So it's an entire value chain. So as long as you participate in the means and the act, you are culpable.
So right now, as we anticipate the celebration, and sometimes I'm a little confused whether we're celebrating, whether we're marking, you know, well, highlighting the day as we await the Human Trafficking Day. What are you going to be asking of Nigerians? How do you think that they can cooperate and support the work that you do at NAPTIP?
Yeah, about working with NAPTIP, it's just simple. You see something, you say something. If you don't report, we can't do our job.
Who should they be saying something to? To
NAPTIP, we have our reporting channels. So we have a short code, which is 627. We have an emergency number, which is 0703 00 00 203. It's 24 hours. We run a 24 hours call center. We have our email address, which is info@naptip.gov.ng. We have our social media handles on Facebook, NAPTIP Nigeria. We have presence on Instagram, also NAPTIP Nigeria. And on Twitter as well, we have a Twitter handle. So we ensure confidentiality. Anyone who shares information with us, be rest assured that, you know, no one is going to rat you out. Nobody is going to say you reported. But without the assistance of Nigerians, we won't be able to effectively carry our work. And, you know, when you get offers as young people, when someone comes to you to say, I have an opportunity for you to live a better life, you ask questions. You need to educate yourself on the red flags. What are those questions to ask? Also do your research.
Considering the fact that children below the ages of 12 could be targeted, are you taking this advocacy also to schools?
Yes.
To secondary schools and primary schools?
Yes, we are. So beginning of the year, we got approval from the Federal Ministry of Education to set up what we call Vanguards in secondary school. So basically, Vanguards is just a platform for young people to educate themselves on issues of human trafficking and also violence against persons. And since June, so far, we've been able to establish these Vanguards in 28 federal government unity schools. So we are starting with the federal government unity schools. Then progressively, we'll move into private schools, move into government schools.
Okay, so just quickly again, the short code.
627.
627?
Yes. Okay. Emergency number 0703 00 00 203. Email info@naptip.gov.ng.
627 is the short code. I think I can have that in my head. Thank you so much for coming on this morning. We wish you all the very best. Dr. Fatima Waziri Aziz is the Director General of NAPTIP. Thank you once again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a break at this point. We'll be back to discuss just one more thing, so please don't go away.
Welcome back, Professor Chidi Odinkalo, former chairman, National Human Rights Commission, joins us next on the program. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning, Chamberlain. How are you?
Oh, fine, thank you. Here, well, so many things.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Good to see you as well. So many things going on in the country today, but different perspectives. People internalize all of these things differently. But for you, I mean, observing from where you are, what is your understanding of what is happening at the moment? Perhaps from a security perspective, if you will.
I'm not a security person. I'm only a poor citizen of a struggling country. There is no rocket science about this. President Buhari is out to lunch. It's as simple as that. This is not rocket science.
But in terms of how different states what are they coming to the table with? Because they were equally elected into office to bring certain things to the table by way of providing solutions, which they promised before being elected. How do you think they are also, doing their bit in all of this?
That's a dangerous road to travel, sir, with all due respect. Yesterday, I saw the statement by Garba Shehu saying that people like you and our sister Marwe in the media should go and capture the bandits or so-called bandits. Maybe you should don your cape and go head out and start doing that. But there's a sense of profound irresponsibility about the way about the glibness of the regime in place now at the moment. At what is clearly a metastasizing crisis, insecurity crisis in the country. And no, it cannot be outsourced to the states. The Constitution is pretty clear about that. All the security services have only one operational chief, and that's the president. You're talking about the police, the army, the navy, the SSS, the NIA, the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Directorate of Military Intelligence, National Security Advisor. Everyone reports through one channel to one person. And the laws are pretty clear. If you look at the Armed Forces Act, if you look at the Police Act, if you look at the Constitution from sections 214 to 220, the president is not just commander-in-chief. He is the operational head of all of these agencies. They all report to him. So the governors are actually quite limited in what they can do. I'm not saying that the governors are not capable of inflicting damage on the system. I'm saying a president who is present will contain that damage. The tragedy of our current crisis is that President Buhari is neither present nor capable of providing leadership. Even worse, he does not care, in my respectful view. You cannot have, with all profound respect, personnel of the Presidential Guards Brigade being killed in Abuja and the president trundling off to Liberia to deliver a lecture on security. Are you serious?
With respect to security and the economy as well, because we've had several lawyers, senior lawyers as a matter of fact, who have told us on the program that governors, yes, they can call that meeting where the president is expected to attend if he fails to call the meeting. And they can also speak up about what is going on concerning security. And if he fails to call the meeting, they can call the meeting. They can have a say in the system. So is that to say that that doesn't apply and cannot have any impact whatsoever if they decide to put their foot down and say, we need to do something about that, that certain things need to empower them a lot more concerning security?
First of all, I don't know which lawyer said that. I don't care what kind of lawyer that is. That person is misplaced and that person is wrong. I think they are reading a different kind of constitution. There are no governors, first of all, in the National Security Council. The composition is pretty clear in the Constitution. Secondly, the governors are only part of the National Council of States, which actually does not, it serves a totally different purpose, and the National Economic Council, which is chaired by the Vice President. Now, the job of the President is a lot of things in one job. It's not just one job. The President is a party leader. The President is a head of government. The President in the current administration is also a petroleum minister. The President is a chief of government. He's a diplomat as well. And lots more. The president is also a commander-in-chief. Now, there are different parts of that job can be hived off. So the president as a party leader, somebody else can do that job. President as head of government, somebody else can do that job. President as a diplomat, you can deploy the foreign minister or some other people to do that. There is only one element in the job of the president that can never be delegated as long as the president is terrestrial. That is commander-in-chief. If the president is in hospital, the president is under life support, you cannot delegate the job of the commander-in-chief. And when the commander-in-chief is as lazy and uncaring as the current one that Nigeria has, the country is exactly where it deserves to be. So anybody who is telling you that governors can come together and do that they are simply reading from the wrong textbook. Period. There can only ever be one commander-in-chief at any point in time. At the moment, Nigeria has a very lazy commander-in-chief and an uncaring commander-in-chief. That is my settled view.
Incidentally, we were having a conversation with Mr. Laddie Thompson earlier on, where he, talked about approaching this intellectually, saying that he would like...
This is not an intellectual problem, sir.
Well, let me just land. So he was saying that, well, we need to find intellectual ways to approach this. Yes, there's the brute part and all of that, but we need to think critically about what is going on and how to not just, react, but get on top of this. But quickly, I'd just like to fall back to a statement you made about Mr. Garba Shehu, the statement he put out. Were you referring to the July 24th statement in response to that video where he was saying that, terrorism is a global scourge that must be fought by all actors? Because you referred to him expecting journalists to go out there. Is that the statement you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay. So it's July So it's July the 24th,
it's a global
not
scourge.
Yesterday.
It's a global scourge. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Getting my... this is the morning. I'm not particularly a morning person.
It happens. So back to the question I was raising. So in terms of dealing with this now, I mean, you are a professor. You have a background in law, human rights activist. And there's been that question around what is the thinking amongst intellectuals, people who have at least been in the system. You have studied the Nigerian system quite well. Is there something... at least it may be a thinking, something to present here, because I think so far it will look like, or at least at this point, we need all hands on deck. So what's the thinking amongst intellectuals? What do you think we need to be doing right now?
I don't think this is actually a situation for leadership. If the point you're making is that we tend to default to so-called operations in these issues, and there isn't sufficient, the interface between intelligence and leadership and operations is not usually properly managed. That is a long-standing tradition in Nigerian security methods, and that's quite substantially because the reason the system defaults to operations rather than a more integrated approach to managing these things is because operations is lucrative. People make money by creating every sense of emergency and asking for money to deal with those, rather than thinking through the things that need to be done. That's the transactionalization of security and insecurity in Nigeria is pretty well established. And that is partly why it's difficult to end this. People see that this is an avenue to make money, and they can't stop making money from it. That is not to say, however, that leadership cannot fix that. And that's the biggest thing here. That's why I say this is not an intellectual problem. Look, if you go to the Cabinet Office, which is in the office of the SGF, the amount of literature, historical and current, analytics from all of the agencies is astonishing. You saw this report, was it yesterday or thereabouts, from the House of Representatives, that the SSS had, and I insist on calling it SSS, not DSS, because SSS is what is created by the law. That law is the National Security Agencies Act. It is entrenched in Section 3185 of the Constitution, cannot be amended except by extraordinary means. A decree or a presidential act cannot change the name to DSS. So it's SSS actually. And calling it DSS is unlawful. It's wrong. So when I say SSS, please don't try to correct me and say DSS. Now, the problem here is that SSS apparently sent lots of reports, not one, not two, not 20, not 30, to the presidency about Kuje prisons. What happened? So people don't read these reports, and Nigerian politicians are happy to tell you they don't read documents, they don't even read newspapers. So that's the point here, that there is illiteracy masquerading as leadership and governance, and that's the consequence we are left with.
Prof, when you talk about leadership and the president being commander-in-chief and is responsible for security, it also goes back to the governors. And I wonder if you're exonerating them here, or you're saying that they're limited in a certain capacity. But they are still the chief security officers of their own states in their own right. So how helpless are they?
A governor cannot...
How helpless are they in the scheme of things? You know, what should they be doing that they're not doing?
If you go back to the Constitution or the Police Act, a governor cannot deploy a police commissioner, actually, without the say-so of the Inspector General, who is directly under the command of the president. A governor cannot deploy a brigade commander, a battalion commander, a platoon commander without the say-so of the president. That is the kind of federalism that we have configured. And people have been arguing for a decentralization of this command structure. It's not yet happened. So we cannot start by exonerating the president from his responsibilities. Are governors capable of toxic conduct? Yes. Kaduna State is an example. Imo State is an example. I think the governors in those states, with profound respect, are part of the problem in those states, not part of the solution. But I do think that those governors can be contained by a committed president, a president who is present and who is willing to provide leadership and who cares. We don't have that in this case. You have situations where Nigerian soldiers have been killed in tents. You have Guards Brigade being killed. The president goes off to another country. The flag is flying at full mast. Who does that?
Well, from the point of law, because, I mean, part of what they cited, which you disagree with, was actually Section 153(1). They talk about the National Police Council and that the governors can attend and the president can attend. And so they have a role in that regard. So do you maintain that the National Police Council, for instance, do they have any role whatsoever in the scheme of things?
The role of the police council actually is one thing, to meet occasionally, to ratify the appointment of the Inspector General of Police. It has absolutely no other role in the process. And the appointment of the Inspector General of Police is the business of the president. Governors cannot appoint an Inspector General. So I don't know what kind of law, but I've got to be perfectly honest with you. I no longer know law in Nigeria because it's voodoo. You know, people produce these things and call them law. Go back to the Constitution. There is only one role for the police council. It is appointment of Inspector General of Police. It doesn't do any other thing. And it is the Inspector General's appointment has to be done by the president. Governors will not appoint the Inspector General. They will not convoke a meeting to wrest powers from the president.
Well, the conversation now for a lot of the political leaders is elections. And it will seem that's the major thing. I mean, you see lots of governors barely even in their states, you know, moving around, trying to, you know, garner support either for their party as a whole or for their interests. But a lot of Nigerians are looking to the elections as perhaps a solution to the challenges we're facing. And that's why you see a lot of clamor on and off social media for various candidates. But for young people, for one at least, they've had lots of clamor asking people to go get their PVCs. And I'd like to ask you, really, first, is that the solution, or at least one of the solutions that we need as a nation? And two, if that is a solution, how then should the electorate approach it?
Look, elections are important. And they are all sorts of things, you know, celebration of civics, the celebration of nationhood, the place where citizens decide agendas periodically, whether it's 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, depending on the country. So I don't want to talk down elections. But as I speak to you, okay, there are lots of parts of Nigeria where elections cannot safely take place. INEC cannot safely deploy election officers in a lot of parts of Nigeria. And INEC is not being honest in not telling Nigerians that this thing is going to, you know, splash on the fan pretty soon. You know, you go to different parts of Nigeria, in Imo West, for instance, or in parts of Katsina or parts of Zamfara. I don't want to go on to talk about parts of in Kagarko, for instance, or in Jema'a, in southern Kaduna, It may be difficult to deploy election workers. And so I think we also we can walk and chew gum on this matter of elections. Talk of PVCs by all means. But also we need to ask brutal questions about why in places where citizens are being killed and security officers are not offering any protection, we are thinking that all of a sudden elections are going to be magicked. Nigerian law school is under threat. And that is just, to go to Nigerian law school in Buhari, you've got to, if you're going from Abuja, you've got to pass the SSS training center in Lower Usman Dam. And it is pretty much a jogging distance there. How can Nigerian law school and Veritas University along that axis where you've got establishments of the major, most elite security services be at risk? And the president is not kicking backsides. And there are no consequences. Look, we've got an interior minister. Since 2015, we have had how many prison breakouts? You have a situation in which the medium security prison in Abuja has suffered this, and the interior minister is still on his job. I'm sorry, why is he not fired?
Well, your point clearly is that it cannot be business as usual. But we have to thank you very much indeed for your time, which, although you're not the money person, but we managed to get you up today. Thank you very much, Professor Chidi Odinkalu.
Thanks a lot, my brother.
All right, so we've got some messages that came through from you about what you've seen us talk about today. This first one comes through from Sulaiman, who says, interagency rivalry, institutions' responsibility overlap, and lack of staff training are some of the major impediments to our national security synergy and intelligence sharing between the institutions. It's critical and paramount in overcoming these security challenges.
We'll take a look at this next one. Temi Tokwe, Olodo, I imagine, saying what Nigeria needs now is collective unity against the national security challenges. If it is not done quickly, then there are dark days ahead.
I believe that will be Olodo. But let's look at Dr. Ikpemosa Uhumuavbi at Ikpems. He says, conflict in Nigeria must be explored at a fundamental level. It needs detailed theoretical examination to elucidate the true nature and dimensions of this phenomenon. Interesting point there.
And, excuse me, Ejike Eze says, as Professor Odinkalu stated, the solution is not rocket science. Some people want us to believe that our problems are so complicated that they cannot be solved. We must ask questions about our leaders. We must question our values and attitudes. That's about all we'll be able to take this morning. We have to thank you so much for sending in your contributions and being a part of the program. We don't take it for granted. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
I'm Kayode Okikelu.
Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
I'm Chamberlain Oso. Keep your eye on the ball. Goodbye.